Welcome, Yvonne. Thank you so much for agreeing to talk to us all about your 10 top tips for writing newsletters. I'm really looking forward to hearing your practical advice and tips for our newsletter writers around the country. Yvonne's based in the Waikato and she's a member of several writing groups. She's done a lot of proofreading throughout her professional career, as well as now for groups within the NZSG. So without further ado, I will hand over to Yvonne, who will introduce herself properly, and we will see what your 10 top tips are. Thanks, Yvonne.
Thanks, Megan. I think Megan sort of covered most of what my background. I've been a teacher, a librarian, a proofreader, copy editor. So I've had a lifetime of experience in doing writing, proofreading and publishing. But like you, I'm still learning all the time, but I have been fortunate to have these experiences along the way. Some of the tips I say today you already know, and that will hopefully make you feel good about what you're doing. Other points may be new to you, and maybe you want to take some of them on board. You may disagree or disagree with some of my points, and I will be interested in hearing your suggestions later in these meetings. So let's get started on our top 10 tips. Firstly, I would suggest that you set up a newsletter folder. This keeps everything in one place on your computer, and you can see I published the NZSG Scottish Interest Group Waikato newsletter. So on my PC, it's in my documents, it's in that folder, and it's in the 2023 newsletter folder. And here I have got the February one saved in both Word and in PDF, and a draft set up for the March one, and some notes which I put in a long time ago for I would normally have that in the draft. I may also have a filler folder if I've got a funny, a little saying, a little tip from someone that may be quite useful to fill in a blank space so I don't have too much blank space on my newsletter when I do it. Create a timeline. This I have found has been very useful. Newsletters don't get written in a day or even an evening, and quite often the week you want to do them, you've got other things on your plate to do as well. So by creating a timeline, something you don't have to rush and do a bad job. You could also be done by the week rather than by the day. If you want people to help, give them time, but also a deadline. So ask them at the beginning of the month to have something to you by the end of the first week or the second week, but give them the date, not just the weeks. And then if they don't get back to you, you have a reason to say, I emailed you at the first asking you to have it in by now. Could you please get on with it because I'm doing the draft on such and such a day. Now start a first draft. Open up a Word document and save as the name you will call your newsletter, or use the last newsletter as a template. Now this is, I will show you later how to do that. Then once you've got a draft set up, you can pop something in along the way that you find. You can always tidy it up later. Don't need to put in the exact font or anything, but it's better to have too much in your copy than not enough. Also, if you enter the information under the correct heading, you will see where there are gaps that need to be filled along the way. Use a simple, clear style. Regular and smaller newsletters are better. They're more current with news, and they're more likely to be read if they're not too long. Straight across the page typing is much easier to read on a computer, so not too many boxes, please. If you use a common program like Word, then if you are sick or want to go on holiday or want to hand over the newsletter, someone is more likely to say, yes, I can do that because I know how to use the program. It's all very well to be fancy, but let's be practical about these things as well. For notices, as you can see here, this was a meeting we had last year, and I didn't write in a whole long sentence. I just wrote the key points, and I bolded some of the things so that people could very quickly see when it was, who the guest speaker was, and where it was being held and the time. So I use bold and italics for emphasis rather than colour. And if you have photos, it's quite a good idea to put them at the end of the newsletter so that people can print off the newsletter without having to print the photos off, which they just want to have a look at quickly. One suggestion with photos too is you can drop them in a Word table, if you know how to do that, in columns, and you can add the text, the caption underneath without the photos moving around like they do in some newsletters. Be consistent with your layout and your font. Which one is easier to read, the top one or the bottom one? You can see the bottom one has lots of different fonts and different colours, and the meaning of the importance of that notices get actually lost. So you're far better to use, as I say earlier, to use bold or emphasis or even italics. And with subheadings, here are some suggestions for subheadings on the right hand side. The other side, you can see I've got the main subheadings are in bold, the next level down are not in bold, and the font gets smaller and they go into italics. And this is an easy way to see what's important and what's the more detailed. Now, I use a checklist to write down what I need to do. This is so because from month to month we have lots of other things that we do. But this helps you to be consistent in your presentation. I've just used a Word table, and I think I've given Megan to put up on the site a copy of it. You can change what you want, put in what you want. If you keep forgetting what size font you're using, or you forget something else, you can look through this or refer to this along the way. And then I also have a blank one and with a date at the top, and I can whip down and I can check what I've done, and not methodically, just have it in front and say, oops, I haven't done that, or at least I've done these things, but I have to do that one. And they're quite easy to prepare at a Word table if you know how. Then I complete the first draft. This is, you've now put a whole lot of information in various formats. You need to tidy it up. And see what you've missed. Have you got the information from the library or the committee meeting? And so tidy it up, put everything in that you can, and then this is when you involve a team. It's important to gather a team around you. They will give you content. They will check, proofread for you things like grammar, spelling or punctuation. Someone to hear your frustrations or to help with computing skills you may not have. Then you produce your final copy. Sorry about this. Make your corrections that your team's advised you of, that you agree with. Have a final read yourself, and then save a copy, a final copy as well as the draft. Don't just save it instead of the draft, and then save as a PDF. Send your newsletters out. Create a newsletter list and always blind CC it to the members. This saves some spamming happening. Then set up your next newsletter. Immediately you finish your last one, get the next one set up. Remove information that's no longer needed, but keep your headings. Highlight the rest of it in red so you can check later that it is up to date and still valid. And then change the dates and numbers of the newsletter, and then set up a to-do list. To finish off, these are just 10 tips that I have found useful. I hope at least some of them may be of use. If you haven't already started on what the content to put in, perhaps another sharing session we could have. Thank you for listening. Over to Megan.
Thanks, Yvonne. That was really interesting and
Sorry about the coughing.
no problem. I mean, there are just so many useful and practical tips in there, aren't there? I really appreciate you taking the time to do this again for us.